Hello, Mordimers here. Welcome to the very first video of my chess channel. Today I'd like to start the series about Akiba Rubinstein, and he is considered to be one of the strongest 5 players in the chess history who never achieved the world champion title, and only one of them who actually had no chances to play the match. And that's happened because Emanuel Lasker, who picked him as a challenger, because at that time world champion picked the challenger, postponed the games couple of times, and also because Rubinstein had the problems with raising the money. Challenger had to raise the money for the rewards and for the expenses of the match. So that was a big problem for Rubinstein. And once everything was fine already and the match was, prepared, then the First World War happened, and it was postponed for another couple of years. So after the war, Rubinstein was still elite player. He was one of the best. He won the tournaments, and then he was a great player, one of the strongest. However, he was not so brilliant and consistent like before the war, and Capablanca gave him a chance for playing the match. However, again, Rubinstein couldn't raise enough money, so he just passed on that. And I choose Rubinstein not because only of that. I choose Rubinstein because of his contribution to the chess, to the theory of the chess, to the endings, and because of the great plan of game, great strategy which he chose, and which was inspiration for many players after. And more about that, I would like to give the voice to great players of the past, like Reuben Fine, who was wonderful American grand chess master, very strong player, and he wrote in his book The World's Great Chess Games as follow: in the endgame he is supreme, and it is here above all that he provides us with an inexhaustible galaxy of masterpieces. In the rook and pawn endings especially he is beyond compare. To cite but one example, we need only recall his game with Malisons at Carlsbad in 1929, which his colleagues called black magic. In so many of his games we are carried away by their classic perfection and feel compelled to say better chess cannot be played by mortal men. That's pretty nice recommendation, isn't it? So if you want to improve your chess endings, follow this guy. Study the games of Akiba Rubinstein, and of course, if you are lazy to do that and you still want to improve, just follow this channel. Feel free to subscribe and press the bell button, and you will be fine. I guarantee that you will enjoy Akiba Rubinstein's game, especially in the later period when he was like the beast of the rook endings. Also, another recommendation is from Aaron Nimzowicz. That's author of My System, and My System is the book which is about chess principles, but more like how to play like really solid game, like solid structure of pawns, solid and logical plan of game. And this was like a very important position for many years. And he wrote in his another book about this Carlsbad tournament I mentioned before from 1929. He wrote, "To us at least, Rubinstein's style of play appears to be absolutely inimitable. He is accomplished in more than just endgame technique. Endgame technique is no longer a monopoly of anyone. Aljechin, Lasker, Capablanca, and others as well can create perfect endgames. And indeed, one would hardly think that the style of a great master could only become apparent in the endgame." So that means that was something more than just the perfect endgame technique. Yeah, Rubinstein was a great and very famous of the rook endings, especially. but that was something more. And then Nimzowicz continue. We consider Rubinstein's colossal depth of plan to be one of his leading characteristics, serving him as a logical bridge leading from the opening into the endgame. We shall clarify this idea by means of a schematic example. Let us suppose that Rubinstein has just played a very modest opening without any overambition, and in the ensuing middle game he stands no better than his opponent. After a series of lengthy, uninteresting and totally unexciting maneuvers, an ending is reached, which also appears to offer Rubinstein no winning chances. The ending is so dull and featureless, in fact, that the spectators are beginning to ask themselves why the game was not called a draw long ago. But then, suddenly, Rubinstein wins. And in retrospect, all of our judgments concerning both the middle game and the opening now appear to have been superficial and inaccurate. Opening and middle game alike were in Rubinstein's favor. Profundity indeed. So, as you see, this is not only the end game, this is whole plan. And I read the books that Rubinstein was the first player in the history which make this connection of the opening with the end game. So Rubinstein plan from the beginning what the pawn structure he gonna have, what the light pieces, what maybe rooks only should stay in this position, and he had the plan. And nowadays grandmaster, international masters, all these people know already that, and I think every player should have the plan from the the opening to the end game. Plan something on every level. That's I think which make our games more complex. And during the history, a lot of players, a lot of grandmasters and world champion was inspired by Akiba Rubinstein. For example, Botvinnik had a similar style, so he got inspired by Rubinstein and studied his game very intensively, and also Garry Kasparov. And I believe, but this is my assumption, and feel free to disagree, that as we know, Garry Kasparov was a coach for Magnus Carlsen, and if you see Magnus Carlsen games now, he play a normal game, nothing's going on, and suddenly he wins, or he go to the end game and he just wins by perfection. And that's pretty similar. It's like if you follow the Rubinstein's games, it's like I see some connections. Okay, I mentioned Garry Kasparov in his book My Great Predecessors Part 1. He wrote one chapter about Akiba Rubinstein. So he was really amazed by that style and studied that a lot, I believe. So that being said, let's go to the game, because it starts to be too long, and I have to tell also a bit about the opponents. So the game was played in 1901 or 1902 in Białystok, that's northeastern of Poland, and opponent's name was Bartoszkiewicz. And we know that he was the engineer, we know that he was a strong correspondence player, because I found the investigation which said that he played in a couple of tournaments of Russian chess newspapers, and he got quite good scores there, so he was strong. Warm welcome for Mr. Bartoszkiewicz. I estimate his ranking and his strength on about maybe 2000. That's my estimation. Also, feel free to disagree. And in the future, we're gonna use the chessmetrics, and that's a little bit more accurate. And I am a big fan of history and history of chess as well. So chessmetrics serves the great role, but for now we cannot use it, so we use my estimation. And his opponent gonna be, of course, Akiba Rubinstein, who play as white, and I estimate his strength at that time maybe 2100, as he won the game and he showed that he's a better player. Okay, let's start. Rubinstein started with e4. We have e5 by Bartoszkiewicz, and knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and knight f6. So we have two knights defense on the board. Rubinstein continues with d4, e captures on d4, and the castle by white. And in this position, Bartoszkiewicz choose bishop c5, defending on the d4, the pawn on d4, and also preparing to castle, but Rubinstein had a different plan for him. e5 is played, and here d5 is the most active and accurate move which was played. And this in this position, Rubinstein choose to exchange the light pieces. So we have e captured on f6, d captured on c4, and Rubinstein check the king. And the most popular and solid line with quite equal game would be bishop on e6. It's still playable in 2019. I see a couple of games. Knight g5 attacking this bishop, and after queen on d5 defending, we have fancy move knight c3. The knight cannot be taken because of pin here, and the even queen is protected. It's also pinned to the king. So really cannot do anything here. Black has to move, and f5 is the best square for the queen, and white now also has to move. So knight c to e4, and in this position the most solid move would be castle on the queen side, and position is equal. Black has one more pawn. However, it's like played many times. The main continuation would be g4, but if you feel not comfortable, you could also play moves like, you know, you can take the bishop on c4, take the bishop on e6, can play even takes on g7. And the game continues. It's pretty interesting, pretty complicated, but very solid opening. But in this position, Bartoszkiewicz chose different line, and he moved his king to f8. And after that, Rubinstein plays bishop on g5, and that caused the first threat, because now Rubinstein can take the pawn on g7, and with the open discovered attack on the queen, and losing the queen on the beginning of the game is not a good idea. So Bartoszkiewicz just took on f6, bishop go on h6 check, and king go to g8, and that's the shelter for the king. However, that is like pretty incomplete shelter. Okay, there is a lot of holes, and for sure not really comfortable place for the king. But can this king be easily attacked? Not really. First we have to make a little bit space. So in this case, first inaccuracy from Rubinstein, which led Bartoszkiewicz to have a better game. Rubinstein too early played the cleaning move in the center, because he was the down 2 pawns, so he wanted to take one and open some diagonal for the queen, or play something here. And it gave the chance to Bartoszkiewicz to play and take actually by knight. It was not played, but Bartoszkiewicz could play that. After c3, of course, this knight cannot be retreated, cannot be saved, because after moving on c6, queen would be exchanged, and then checkmate on f8 is like it's gonna happen. So that's not good line. But after c3, bishop on e6, it's the correct move. And here white can continue with continuation, like queen on h5, and try to attack here somehow. But after exchanging the bishop here, it's not gonna be so easy for white, because let's say white take on d4, and then we have queen on d5, forcing to exchange also the queens, and white have to take that queen. And after taking and exchanging, attacking this bishop and defending, white probably would take the bishop, and in this position it's better for black, okay, because first of all, white has isolated pawn, then black has one more pawn, and these 4 pawns playing actually against these 2 pawns on the queen side, so black is considered better here, so that's not really a good one. However, after queen d5, maybe queen could go to h4. That's even worse, because after exchange and on h6 the bishops, black can force actually white to exchange on g5, which is even better for them, and the game continues the same fashion, and just black has better pawn structure on the king side, so this is even worse. So queen on h5 is not the solution. Maybe then something slower like knight d2, and then, you know, going for f6 pawn, or maybe something like this, and then trying to get something somehow somewhere here or here or here, attacking here, but that looks like too slow, because black just exchanged this this bishop right now, and white has no choice, have to exchange, because if they move, then this knight can just retreat, and if you count the pieces, black would have one piece ahead and easily win the game. So here they would have to exchange, and after king f8, c d4, queen d4, black has a better position. Okay, can try some attacks like maybe queen f3, which is the strongest recommended. The knight is untouchable, or even it shouldn't be taken. But even if it's taken and white attack this way, attacking this rook, which has to be moved, and has like, it looks like quite strong attack, but it's still nothing, because we have a threat of checkmate. And after exchanging the queens, nothing going on. We have 4 pawns on the queen side against 2 pawns, so it should be much better for black. So that was the chance for actually if knight d4 is played, that would be a chance for Bartoszkiewicz to actually get a better game for the rest of this game. And he actually took by the bishop, and this is inaccuracy on this side. However, it still needs some skills to exploit that. After c3, black can actually defend this this game, and there is only one move which leads to equal game. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the move you would play by black, who, you know, you wouldn't lose badly to Akiba Rubinstein, to young Akiba Rubinstein, okay? While I'm gonna enjoy my cup of tea. So for those who found the bishop on f2, because this bishop is lost, you are right, and if you found this attack on the king, so at least this bishop could die for something, I have a bad news. It looks very promising, but it leads to worse position, because after taking, we develop, white also develop, and bishop g6, building some kind of fortress, king g1, very, you know, silent move, and black maybe would play something like knight on e5, but after queen g3, and even they find a good outpost on d3, it's still worse for black. The white is still better. White can even sacrifice the rook. It's temporary sacrifice like this, and even it's taken. Queen d5, because protecting this pawn is probably important because of attack by the knight. If knight can be taken closer to the king, that's pretty dangerous with this bishop on h6. White could play c7, and if black want to eliminate this annoying bishop, it is in cost of the rook. Rook cannot be moved because all the squares are actually taken by the rook or by the bishop, and one square is not taken, but it still cannot be played because of queen e7, and this is too many threats that has to be exchanged. This is checkmate threat also, so that's not the solution. Black would probably just exchange, and after moving king to g7, take on e7, and white is much better here. So mostly because of this passed pawn, and all the pieces of black are on the king side, so that's better for white. So that's not the move we look for. The move we look for is actually bishop on e5, and bishop on e5 looks a bit scary because of course of this weakness on 8 ranks, but this time nothing is going on, nothing gonna happen, because after exchange and pawn on f4, of course we black cannot take that pawn. It's protected, and of course we know already about this this trap. So bishop on e6 is the correct move, and after exchange, white could make another threat, actually to checkmate here, but after f7 and moving the pieces, developing the knight, everything is fine, and it's equal. Okay, black has even one more pawn on the queen side, so maybe would be slightly better. So bishop on e5 was the move we try to find in this position, and you would probably save that game. So congratulations if you did. However, Bartoszkiewicz play in this, he thought, okay, I'm gonna lose this bishop, I can't do anything about that, so I'm just gonna develop and build a kind of fortress here. And that was actually a blunder, because this let Rubinstein get much better chances. So Rubinstein took on d4, and after exchanging to the pawn, because was taken by the knight, Rubinstein played knight c3, and this is the final mistake, but it's nothing can be done. Okay, black maybe could try to protect this d5, but it still gives you nothing. All the lines leads to the checkmate or taking the queen, so that's not helping. So black just try to continue to build the fortress, and in this position there is actually a combination you can try to find. And this tactic is actually forced checkmate in 7, but try to find the winning move for white while I enjoy my cup of tea. Okay, so we see, actually I see only one motive which could be used. This is overworking for the queen. She protects the knight on d4, and she protects the square on e8, and cannot defend both. So the correct move would be e8, and there is not big choice here. Black has to take, of course, and now it's something what Akiba Rubinstein just missed. This move, if you found this move and you are 20 years old or younger, and you found this move, I see the bright future for you, because Rubinstein couldn't find this move and you found it, so congratulations. This is forcing checkmate, after defending, just queen d4, and queen cannot be taken because of checkmate on e7. And both of these squares cannot be protected after the queen disappears, so black can maybe play on the rook on e8, but it really doesn't help. We have queen e5, and this the same problem. If it's taken, both of these squares cannot be protected. So if you even try to protect, then we have check, and we have checkmate on the 8th rank, and that would be great. However, in this position, Rubinstein simply took on d4. So if you found this move, and congratulations, that's also a winning move, and actually black has nothing to do here. They can try something like c6 or rook d8, but it's still leading to checkmate. Okay, black would have to sacrifice the queen, and that's game over. So the Bartoszkiewicz play in this moment queen e4, and we have the same position which I show you in the combination. And after this move, knight on d5, Bartoszkiewicz, Engineer Bartoszkiewicz resign the game, and I show you already the reason why he resigned. So yeah, that's the first game ever recorded by we don't know by whom, but it's ever recorded of Akiba Rubinstein, and Engineer Bartoszkiewicz is famous because of losing that game. And I found investigation about who was he more. Link in the description. I post the link, so feel free to see more if you are interested who was Engineer Bartoszkiewicz. There are not much because not everything was found, and yeah. So guys, if you like the video, please press the like button, and of course if you don't like it, push on like, so feel free for that. Also, if you have any suggestion about this video or the channel, leave the comment, and feel free to throw the ideas or advices for me. I'm just, you know, I struggle so much in this video, and probably in the future ones also. So I read all comments and really appreciate them. So one more thing, this game, this analyze I save as a study, so you can find the study in Lichess. And I will also leave the link in the description to that study and to the other games of Akiba Rubinstein. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.